Hello everyone, Bard Nerd here, and welcome back to my Let's Play of Millennia. We are playing Great Britain, establishing our empire. We have been skirmishing with Nigeria here a bit because they have been sending troops near us, which they should not do, naughty them. So they are getting those troops destroyed for their trouble. Um, we I'm trying to create our empire. I had planned to create it on other continents, but that has not taken off, and it probably won't actually really take off in this game. There's less multi-continental empires are less of a thing in this game. Of course, you can create them uh, as part of conquering the world. Um, but really, it's not a except a doesn't have benefits the same way it does in the real world, and it doesn't have this sort of things that motivate it to happen that the real world do, uh, does, or at least it did. Still does to some extent. But uh, So, we are just fighting off the well, Nigeria decided to have a lot of their forces hang out near me for no discernible reason, and I took exception to this, so I am destroying them uh, with great glee and with great ease, because my forces are a good bit more advanced than theirs. And oh, I have a bit of a sneeze, apparently. Um, Killing enemy forces makes you sneeze or something? I don't know. So, we had some problems recording the sound when we initially did this. So we are recording the sound afterwards. I am trying a few methods to do that, and this is a different method than I used last time, but it seems to, I think, work perhaps slightly better in some ways. So, we'll see. I was fiddling with this to get the best result. We possibly might skip over some of the more boring parts during the recording, but we'll see how that goes. All right. Water. I need water. Yes, my social fabric. A fair bit here. A lot of insight, which is actually one of the weaker social fabrics. Um, but getting organization when I can, it looks like, which is good because organization is the strongest social fabric. In my opinion, I just did a guide on social fabrics the other day. Check it out. Um, but yeah, looking at the social fabrics here, organization I think is the strongest. Ingenuity and tenacity are the next strongest. Insight and community are pretty weak, and tolerance is just why would you even bother? But let's see here. All right. Um. All right. Well, something exciting will happen, and once something exciting happens, I will have commentary on it. All right. Thing is happening. I'm looking at stuff. I'm looking at what resources I have. Um. Okay, that's not the most exciting thing, but looking at the resources I have is actually kind of interesting. Seeing what resources I've been gathering here. I have a whole lot of tuna in this place, um, which is, keeps me very fed, actually. Um, it's a good way to keep fed. Lots of tuna. Yummy sushi, I guess. I don't know. Or usually when I eat tuna, I'm usually eating it as sushi. I suppose. Do like some seared tuna sometimes. Now I'm well, well, it's breakfast time actually, not time for that I'd normally be having. I guess you could have some fish for breakfast. Some people do. Um, but all right. Yeah, I'm just trying to arrange the stuff in here. Let's probably gonna look at other places a bit too to see what I got in other places. Um, maybe I will. We'll see. Okay. Looks like Zulu offered me peace and I accepted because that war was just a kind of a non-existent war to begin with. So just continuing to assemble my armies that are going to later be used for an invasion of Nigeria. We will eventually get to the invasion of Nigeria, but it will possibly take a little while until we do. Um, we will not get to it in this session. I'm going to be spending a lot of time building up my military. I like to build things up before um, that is both a strength and a weakness of mine, I suppose. I go into things very prepared, but I take a over long time preparing, which does actually mean that then I don't necessarily do the stuff when it wants to be done. Um, I'm doing a smart thing, reinforcing that, but a smarter thing would have, in fact, been to give them forced march and to destroy the army that had been um, demoralized. That would have been the smarter thing. Uh, but oh well. So just sending my ships down here to eventually do bombardment. I think at this point I was under the mistaken impression that they would be able to seize coastal towns, which is not directly the case. I will eventually send ships to them that can spawn units. Um, and I would use those units that I spawn to seize the coastal towns, although the it turns out that when they attack the coastal towns, it they just don't they destroy units that are in there, but then a lot of the units immediately respawn if they're the spawn defense units, so it doesn't do lasting damage to the spawned default units that will help ground units that are also attacking in the same turn, which is weird and probably a bug. One assumes, but I'm not sure. The effectiveness of naval units to do anything against ground troops in this game is severely limited. They can kill um, ground troops that are coastal, but they can't affect uh, cities or outposts or stuff in any way, which some of the stuff implies they are supposed to be able to do. So there's, as in most 4X games, not much of any point to having a navy. It's kind of an unfortunate failure mode of a lot of 4X games, and this is no different, um, sadly. But, oh well. Um, so just killing Nigerian units over here, waiting to heal up. I think instead of attacking right away, rushing my culture, what am I gonna do with my culture? That's a good question. I think, oh yes, I'm gonna absorb that outpost down there. That is a good idea for me to do. So now I have another lumber town for Manchester, which will greatly increase our production. Um, that'll be very good, actually. Well, I will eventually make it a lumber town and put lumber around it. Presumably I'll do that now, but we'll see how long it takes me to do that. All right, Manchester is right. Still building units. I finished building up the armors I was intending to build. I'm going to actually end up building more because I feel the need to build up huge forces. I probably don't actually really need them, but they will actually come in useful. So um, no, so just building up these lumber camps here. To give us plenty of places to harvest wood, but also more importantly to make Sunderland um, a um, lumber town that will give us a bunch of production just from having those next to it. That's one of the really interesting features of this game, specializing towns, and it is really useful. Actually, it's um, the effect of specialized production towns is extremely important to develop, to being able to quickly develop um, your regions soon after you build them. Otherwise, it takes a long time to get any sort of reasonable production, especially if you don't have a lot of stuff to produce. Though in the late game, you get stuff that will change that. You get some stuff that you can easily work basically anywhere to do a lot of production. So, but early game, you really need um, either a large clump of hills or to do clay mines in grassland and a mining town. Hold on. Alright, and spam, as it so very often is, of course. Hopefully that does not actually mess up my recording stuff, but, anyways, alright. I don't think it has messed up anything, but we'll see. I was talking about something here, but oh yes, how useful towns that are production based are. Um, and you can get those either from mining towns, which need either a cluster of hills or of grassland, because you can build clay mines on grassland, and those are quite useful in the early to mid game, even into somewhat late mid game. Those are like actually until you get concrete plants in the actual late game. Those are pretty darn useful production wise and also improvement point wise. Falling off some in the late mid game. Um, but those will you will not want to keep those as mining towns in the uh, actual late game, but by then you'll have plenty of other good options, so it won't matter so much. Or have a lot of forest, and forest, of course, means that you will have lumber, which and the lumber economy is really, really good. This game, it's good both for a lot of production. Um, um, you'll get better production sources as the game goes on. The production from lumber is especially good in the earlier and uh, mid game. But the of course, the other benefit is that you can then make paper and books out of the wood, and that's incredibly useful. That's one of uh, can be one of the main sources of gaining research in the game. So, especially early on, that's going to be probably your main source of research. So, having some nearby woods is pretty important. Um, late Later in the game, um, for production, nothing really beats um, having blah, 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 hills and doing mining. Um, and then the chains you can set up from that are just the most amazing for production. Um, there will be other means of getting good production that in the late game will actually much exceed the production you get from lumber. But I don't think anything ever really matches the production you get from a well-developed mining industry. Um, but all right. So we are, and I'll at some point do a, tips and tricks guide about general strategy. But not right now. Possibly next month or something. I'll see about that. We'll see. All right, let's wait until we get something actually interesting going on. I'll just have some of my water, cause talking to you all is thirsty work. So I'm just examining all the stuff that the other nations have here, like examining what governments other people have chosen, what ages they're in. Um, uh, yeah, it looks like Shang Dynasty and the United Kingdom, the very weak United Kingdom, are the only ones that have advanced to the age 5 governments. Everyone else is still old government. It's interesting. Selecting buildings to build. Really not a whole lot of gripping stuff here, I suppose. But up. All right. Um, so we're still organizing our stuff so that it will eventually. We're taking out Nigeria's forces here still. At doing a good job of routing them. Um, but it's going to be a while before we get really interesting and go on the actual invasion, of course, because, well, me being me, there'll be a lot of build-up. Um, I am always one to build up economy and build up military forces, which, when they finally get used, they're really powerful, which is good. But sometimes it is beneficial to use them early on, which is why I'm doing my other playthrough, um, where I am trying to do aggressive early military rushes, um, to develop my skills in that. Um, but good to develop skills that we are lacking in and get outside our comfort zone once in a while. So yes, it looks like we're just looking at what the uh, Nigerian cities are and selecting what our targets are going to be, deciding where we're going to go first when we do invade. It's just, going to be a while till we actually do the invasion. But we're planning it right now. Planning it. Advanced planning is essential, Yeah, they have this, so I'm gonna be sending my navies over to bombard stuff on their western coast. Not that it will actually have much effect as I said before, although I will send down some ships that are capable of spawning land units, um, and those will create some land units that will actually seize the coastal cities. Um, but uh, that's actually quite interesting. They have some ships that can create. So they have in the Age of Discovery, which is the variant age that I went into here. Variant age 5, which I guess I'm no longer in. I'm now in the Age of Enlightenment, but was the age 5 variant age that I went into, which is, and it's a pretty good age. It does make your metalworking industry uh, have problems until the much later in the game. Uh, actually, until the fairly late game. Um, but um, that's all right if you don't have lots of sources for much metalworking industry, which I did not have lots of sources for that. So um, that's fine. Um, it's just, but otherwise, it's a really useful age for a lot of stuff, especially if you are geared towards exploring, which I did want to do. So, um, but anyways, it will allow you to do that, or actually, I think it's actually the exploration domain that I chose. That is actually what allows me to create the NARs that allow that will spawn explorers. Yeah, I think it's actually the exploration domain that allows me to do that. But anyways. Right now I'm just deciding what to build here. I think I'm finally deciding to build siege weapons to assist me in an actual full-scale invasion. The giant crossbows, which are a thing that you get in the Age of Discovery instead of getting cannons. Because in the Age of Discovery you get mechanical stuff. I'm not sure exactly what the theming is, but um, where it came from, but you do. It's kind of interesting. Um, so, um, this is a perhaps less fully exciting session than some, but the mid game can sometimes be like that. You don't have well, I guess the late game can sometimes be like that. Honestly, because by the late game, like you kind of know what the outcome is if you're not playing against humans or if you're playing against not the highest level of AI, um, which is kind of unfortunate. The AI in this game is not. I think they could have done a better job of designing and balancing it in some ways. Um, the Grandmaster AI will definitely give you a decent challenge. The Master AI will, be perfectly reasonable to compete against. You will know um, that you have, assuming you do a decent job, you will know that you have won the game uh, by the late mid game, um, and it will kind of just be cleanup after that, without any real competition. or feeling of you're worried about anything the AI might do, because you won't be so far ahead of them, but you will be pretty much ahead of them. Um, and then, yeah, getting school books here, great innovation in the Age of Enlightenment, amazing innovation. Innovations in this game, some of them are really good, some of them are less good, but most all of them are at least useful. Um, and this one is quite nice. But so yeah, so you probably won't, unless you're really good or really lucky, you probably won't be so far ahead that you can just ignore them. Well, you might, um, but you will be definitely ahead enough that you don't actually have to really worry about them. Um, assuming you don't horribly screw up, which is always good, of course. Um, and not everyone is great at 4X games, of course. This, assumes a reasonable baseline level of skill at 4X games. Um, uh, and some knowledge of the game's mechanics and strategies. Um, if you don't have much knowledge of the game's mechanics and strategies, of course, things will be much more difficult for you. Um, and some people grasp those easily and some don't. I tend to be one of the sorts of people that grasps those fairly intuitively, and for times when I don't, many games, there's lots of YouTubers who do strategy vids and such, and I find those very useful. There's not an amazing amount of those out there for Millennia. There's some, and some of them are very good. Um, and some of them I think were initial impressions from when it first came out that could do with a little bit more updating. But definitely some useful things out there still. Just it would be great if there were more. Um, so, anyways, the Grandmaster AI uh, will give you much more of a challenge, but the problem with it is that it is a lot. The challenge you will. It is just so much of a challenge for the early game. So it kind of, in all difficulty settings, has the thing of if you can make it out of the early game when the AI is much more competent and where the AI's bonuses are much more powerful, and when you are struggling more, you're gonna do just fine. Uh, but then it becomes a little bit more boring. So, but anyways, this session is getting close to done. I have about 1 minute left on the recording, I believe. So we're gonna be wrapping up this. And coming back to this, we've still got a few more of these sessions that will be recorded after the fact because of the audio mix-up. We'll have a few more of them. There'll probably be like half a dozen or so of them in total. And then we'll get back to the regular ones. I've already recorded a couple of those. And those will, be coming out in, over the next week or so. And eventually we'll get to the end of this. But that's a bit all. So we're going to say goodbye. And until next time, take care.